This is Johnny Nelson, and you're watching Sporting Icons.
Okay, so I've noticed, and I'm sure a lot of you have noticed as well, that Frank Smith, the right-hand man for Eddie Hearn at Matchroom Boxing, has been doing a lot of interviews lately. A lot of interviews, which is good. You know, I like Frank Smith interviews. He comes across quite jovial and all that kind of stuff. I don't know him personally as such. Met him on 2 occasions, very, very briefly. He wouldn't have a clue who I was. I don't think he even watches YouTube. I don't know. Anyway, he comes across quite well, and I do enjoy some of his interviews. But lately, most of them seem to be themed around Ben Shalom. And I've heard him use words like Ben Shalom is inept, boxer, don't know what they're doing, words to that kind of effect. Now, firstly, of course, it's rivalry. If there's an opportunity to take a dig at your rival and push out narratives that, hey, we're the best and everybody else ain't, and not even close to us, you're going to do that, okay? It's all about business, okay? It is what it is. But as much as I like Frank Smith, and I do believe that if Eddie Hearn could just give up the limelight just a little bit, I think Frank Smith could do very, very well promoting some of the shows. He could. But one thing I do take a little bit of issue with is where Frank Smith, for example, calls Ben Shalom inept and he don't know what he's doing. When Frank Smith has done fantastic at Matchroom, absolutely fantastic. You know, he's a guy who walked in there and convinced Eddie Hearn to give him a job. It was a little bit cheeky, and he got a job as like a T-boy or whatever it was, and he rose through the ranks. Granted, it's not like there was 5,000 employees that he had to go through interviews and processes and all that kind of thing with to leapfrog them all. There's only about half a dozen people, okay? But still, he's done absolutely fantastic, and him and Eddie Hearn together have done fantastic. They turned a multi-million-pound company into an even more profitable company. So they've done fantastic, right? So that's no dig. But what I do take a little bit of issue with is when Frank Smith, who is employed by Matchroom, who could be fired at any point if he'd done something wrong, could be made redundant or whatever, says that Ben Shalom is inept, doesn't know what he's doing, when Ben Shalom is self-made. Where Frank Smith walked into the Matchroom office to get a job, Ben Shalom didn't walk into the Boxer office to get a job. He created Boxer with no money in his pocket, no kind of backing, no real contacts in boxing. He just had an idea, I want to be involved in boxing. And look what he's managed to do with only a few years. Started from the small halls, which is hard enough. That's real hard. Very, very hard, actually. And then made some contacts, and then, of course, done the Ultimate Boxer, things like that, and ended up getting a gig on Sky Sports. And he's only been on Sky Sports for 2 years. That's not somebody who sounds like he's inept and doesn't know what he's doing. I can only compare it to put myself in Ben Shalom's situation, okay? Ben Shalom, he's got no money, he's got no backing, he doesn't know people in boxing or anything. Him on day one, I want to get involved in boxing, okay? That's like me. I could do that right now, okay? So put me in the same position as Ben Shalom was back then, where I have what I have right now. I have a couple of quid, and I have a vast phone book of people in boxing. So I want to be a boxing promoter, for example, like Ben Shalom did. You put me and him side by side, who's more likely to get a gig on Sky Sports at some point? You'd probably favour me. But that's not how it's happened. A lot of people have been putting on small hall shows and all those kind of things and had ideas that they want to be involved in boxing and will never ever get that gig. I'm not saying that none of them are good enough, I'm sure a lot of them are, but he's managed to do it. And it's not through any kind of underhanded tactics or anything like that. He's got a vision and he's sticking to that vision. So that's not a guy who's inept. And again, just to clarify, I don't ever want to be a boxing promoter, okay? I don't. At some point, I may use somebody's boxing license to put on a show at some point, maybe, I don't know. I might do that. Not that Robert Smith of the British Box Board of Control would ever give me a license, okay? You know, that would be the first thing. But if I was going to be involved in boxing somehow, I'll either do management or advisor, maybe. I think I'm pretty good at that one. Or, actually my dream job, to be honest, I know we're getting sidetracked here a little bit, would be that I would like to do what, say, Phil Kirkbride does at Wasserman, or Daniel Barnard at Matchroom, or JJ at Boxer. Coordinate the media for the fight nights and the press conferences and all that kind of stuff. I'd love that. I really would. That's kind of like my calling card. Anyway, that said, so the point is that this is somebody who started off with nothing. Didn't know anybody, didn't have any money in his pocket, had to borrow money to get his promoter's license and things like that. I'm sure he lost a whole lot of money on small halls and things like that. Now he's got a business that's profitable. Listen, we can all have digs at what's happening over there on Sky Sports. There's not enough shows going on and whatever else. They started off fantastic, bearing in mind they had zero stable, and look what they've done. On a very, very limited shoestring budget compared to what Matchroom have with DAZN, compared to what even Queensberry have on formerly BT Sport, now TNT Sport. So yes, we can all be critical. Ultimately, that's not our problem, is it? We want fight nights and we want good ones. It is what it is. But the point is, Frank Smith can't call Ben Shalom inept when he's self-made, and Frank Smith could lose his job tomorrow. Could Frank Smith have zero contacts in boxing and get a gig on Sky Sports? Could Eddie Hearn, if his dad wasn't Barry Hearn? Could he have done that? Could Eddie Hearn have started off on the small hall with no money in his pocket and work his way up to getting a gig on Sky Sports? Unlikely. Very, very unlikely, but Ben Shalom has. And so people can say what they like about Ben Shalom, Sky Sports, Boxer, whatever, okay? I really don't care. But you can't call him inept. You can't say he doesn't know what he's doing. It's very easy when, say, Frank Smith is on Matchroom, who has been there for, I don't know, in the boxing part for, was it 14 years or something like that? You've got a lot of experience. You've built up experience as you went along. Did Eddie Hearn know what he was doing 2 years in when he started promoting? Did he? Look back. He didn't, did he? He made a lot of balls ups. He did. A lot of fight nights that made you go, really? So it's a little bit different, isn't it? It's very, very different is my point, okay? So anyway, that's my thoughts on this whole situation. I don't necessarily blame Frank Smith. I said, if you can have a go at your competitor and push a narrative to convince the public that we are the best and everybody else is trash, of course you're going to do that. Is Ben Shalom bitten back or anything? No, but this is the media world that we have with boxing, that media don't want to ask promoters about certain fights coming up or anything. Well, they kind of do it as a preliminary, but ultimately they want the bigger story. It's all EastEnders. That's all it is nowadays. It's Coronation Street. It's reality TV. He said, she said. Ben Shalom, what do you think about what Eddie Hearn said? Eddie Hearn, what do you think about what Frank Warren and Ben Shalom said? And that's what boxing is nowadays with the media. So I don't blame Frank Smith. He is being asked a question. Okay, he's not just mentioning Ben Shalom. But anyway, listen, I think I've made my point. Okay, let's judge Ben Shalom in 5 years' time. Let's see where he is. He's going to make some mistakes. He is. Is it ideal that 2 purse bids were pulled out of? No, but there has to be reason for it. My personal belief, I don't know this, it's down a budget. Have they whacked the budget on signing Bacoli, Okoli and any other kind of Olies? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe it's limited to the shows. Maybe it's impacted the shows. Maybe Sky Sports are not giving them the fight dates. I don't know what it is. But maybe this year is somewhat of a write-off because they have spent a lot of money on these new signings. Maybe next year we're going to start to see some of the fruits of their labour because he will have a vision. He's very, very ambitious, is Ben Shalom. He is. So anyway, that's my thoughts. You drop me yours. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you next video.